I skipped my brother's wedding after he shamed my daughter's speech disorder at his engagement party. 2 months later his new wife called me crying because she discovered he's been cruel to her autistic nephew too. Now she's filing for divorce and my brother is blaming our entire family for destroying his life. My brother Marcus, 35M, and I, 32F, grew up together in what most people would call a normal family. We shared bedrooms until we were teenagers, fought over the TV remote, and generally did the sibling thing. As adults, we stayed close. We'd call each other every few weeks, celebrate holidays together, and our kids played together at family gatherings. Marcus always had this thing where he'd make comments that sounded helpful but weren't really helpful. Like when I was going through my divorce 3 years ago, he'd say things like maybe if you hadn't been so focused on work, things would have worked out better. Or when I bought my house last year, he said it's nice that you found something you can actually afford. I used to think he meant well but just expressed himself poorly. My daughter Ariana, 9F, has been dealing with a stuttering issue since she was about 6. It started gradually after the divorce, which the speech therapist said was normal for kids going through family changes. Some days she speaks perfectly fine, other days certain words trip her up completely. We've been working with a speech therapist for 2 years now, and she's made good progress, but it's still there. The stuttering bothers Ariana more than she lets on. She'll avoid speaking in class sometimes, or she'll get frustrated and just stop talking altogether when the words won't come out right. At home, I never rush her or finish her sentences. I just wait. The speech therapist told me that patience and not drawing attention to it helps the most. Marcus knew about Ariana's stuttering because it's not something you can hide at family gatherings. But he never seemed to understand that it wasn't something she could just stop doing. He'd make comments like Ariana just needs to slow down when she talks or she'll grow out of it if she practices more. I'd correct him gently, explaining what the speech therapist told us, but he'd just nod and change the subject. 6 months ago, Marcus got engaged to his girlfriend Sarah, 29F. Sarah seems nice enough, though I don't know her very well. They decided to have their engagement party at my parents' house since it has a big backyard. The whole extended family was invited, aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, about 30 people total. Ariana was excited about the party. She'd been practicing a little speech she wanted to give congratulating Uncle Marcus and Sarah. She wrote it herself and had been reading it out loud to me for weeks. It was sweet and simple, just a few sentences about how happy she was for them and how much she loved having Sarah in the family. The party was going well. Everyone was mingling, eating, having a good time. Marcus and Sarah were making the rounds, thanking people for coming. After dinner, my dad called for everyone's attention so Marcus could make a toast. Marcus thanked everyone for coming and talked about how happy he was with Sarah. Then Ariana tugged on my sleeve and whispered that she wanted to give her speech. I asked Marcus if Ariana could say something, and he said of course. I helped Ariana stand up on a chair so everyone could see her. She started speaking, and everything was going fine for the first sentence. Then she got to the word congratulations and got stuck. She kept trying to say it, making the C sound over and over. I could see her getting frustrated, but I just smiled at her encouragingly and waited. That's when Marcus stepped in. He said, "Come on Ariana, just spit it out. Everyone's waiting." Ariana tried again, but now she was more nervous and the stutter got worse. She started the word 3 more times and couldn't get past the first sound. Marcus let out this loud sigh and said, "This is taking forever. Ariana, you need to think before you speak. Just slow down and say the word properly." The entire party went quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Ariana's face turned red. She looked down at her feet and climbed off the chair without finishing her speech. She came over to me and buried her face in my side. I could feel her shaking. I told Marcus we needed to talk, but he waved me off and said she'll be fine. Kids need to learn how to communicate properly. You can't baby her forever. That's when I lost it. I told him that Ariana has a medical condition, that she's been working with a speech therapist, and that what he just did was cruel. He said he was just trying to help her get better and that I was being too sensitive. I gathered our things and took Ariana home. She didn't say a single word the entire car ride, which is unusual for her. She went straight to her room when we got home and stayed there for the rest of the evening. The next day, I called Marcus to explain why what he did was so harmful. I told him that the speech therapist specifically said not to rush Ariana or make her feel self-conscious about her speech. I explained that public situations were already difficult for her, and what he did would probably set back her progress. Marcus said I was overreacting and that he was just trying to help Ariana learn to speak better. He said that coddling her wasn't going to solve the problem and that someone needed to push her to improve. When I tried to explain that's not how speech therapy works, he said he didn't have time to argue about parenting methods. 2 weeks later, the wedding invitation arrived in the mail. It was a beautiful invitation for a ceremony and reception at a fancy venue downtown. As I looked at it, I kept thinking about Ariana's face at the engagement party and how she hasn't wanted to speak in front of groups since then. I decided not to go to the wedding. I couldn't celebrate someone who had humiliated my daughter and refused to understand why it was wrong. I RSVP'd no and sent a gift with a card wishing them well. Marcus called me furious. He said I was trying to ruin his wedding and that I was being petty and dramatic. He said the whole family was talking about it and that I was embarrassing him. He got other family members involved, and now I'm getting calls and texts telling me I should put family first and attend the wedding. My parents are split. My mom understands why I'm upset but thinks I should go for the sake of family unity. My dad thinks I'm making too big a deal out of what happened and that Marcus didn't mean any harm. Some cousins have taken sides. A few have reached out to say they thought what Marcus did was wrong and they support my decision. Others think I'm overreacting and that Ariana will be fine. Ariana hasn't asked about the wedding, but she also hasn't volunteered to speak in front of anyone since the engagement party. Her speech therapist says setbacks like this are common but that it might take time to rebuild her confidence. Marcus sent me one more text saying that if I don't come to his wedding, he doesn't want me in his life anymore. He said I'm choosing to be stubborn over being his sister. I keep going back and forth. He's my brother, and this is his wedding day. But every time I think about going, I remember Ariana's face that night and how she hasn't been the same since. I can't forget how he refused to acknowledge that what he did was hurtful and how he blamed me for protecting my daughter. The wedding is in 3 weeks. Half the family thinks I'm wrong, half thinks I'm right. I just want to do what's best for Ariana, but I also don't want to destroy my relationship with my brother permanently. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he publicly shamed my daughter? Update 1: The wedding happened last Saturday. I didn't go. Ariana and I spent the day at the Children's Museum instead. She loves the interactive science exhibits there, and we spent hours building things and doing experiments. She was chatting normally all day, asking questions and explaining things to me. It was the first time since the engagement party that I heard her speak freely without seeming worried about her words. While we were there, I got several texts from family members at the wedding. My cousin Lisa sent me pictures of the ceremony and reception. Everyone looked happy. Marcus looked handsome in his tux, and Sarah's dress was beautiful. Part of me felt sad that I wasn't there to see my brother get married. But then my aunt called me Sunday morning with the full story of what happened at the reception. Apparently, during the speeches, Marcus decided to talk about family and how important it was to him. He mentioned that he was disappointed some family members chose not to be there because of misunderstandings that could have been resolved. He didn't say my name, but everyone knew he was talking about me and Ariana. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. According to my aunt, Marcus said that he hoped his future children would be raised to be stronger and more resilient than some kids in the family who get babied when they face challenges. My aunt said the room got uncomfortable. A few people shifted in their seats. My mom apparently looked mortified. But Marcus kept going. He said that kids today are too sensitive and that parents who don't push their children to overcome obstacles are doing them a disservice. My cousin Lisa later told me that several people came up to her after the speech asking if Marcus was talking about Ariana. Lisa didn't know what to say because she didn't want to make things worse, but she was embarrassed for our whole family. The worst part is what happened next. My dad's sister, Aunt Joyce, has a son with autism. Her son Tommy, 12M, has speech delays and social difficulties. After Marcus's speech, Aunt Joyce packed up her family and left the reception early. She didn't say goodbye to anyone, just gathered her things and walked out. My mom called me Sunday night crying. She said she was ashamed of what Marcus said and that she understood completely why I didn't go. She said Marcus had crossed a line and that she was going to have a serious talk with him. But the call that really got to me was from Tommy's mom, Aunt Joyce. She called Monday evening and told me what happened from her perspective. She said that when Marcus started talking about kids being babied and needing to be stronger, she immediately thought about both Ariana and Tommy. She said she felt like Marcus was attacking not just Ariana, but any child who needed extra support or understanding. Aunt Joyce said she'd always looked up to Marcus because he seemed so put together and successful. But hearing him talk that way about children with challenges made her see him differently. She said she couldn't sit there and listen to someone in her own family basically say that kids like Tommy were weak or that their parents were failing them. The conversation that really opened my eyes happened Tuesday. My mom called to tell me about her talk with Marcus. She said she went to their house Monday night to discuss what he'd said at the wedding. According to my mom, Marcus doubled down on everything. He told her that Ariana's speech problems were my fault because I divorced her father and created an unstable home environment. He said that if I had worked harder to save my marriage, Ariana wouldn't have developed the stuttering in the first place. Then he said something that made my mom hang up on him. He told her that Ariana's stuttering was probably fake or exaggerated, and that Ariana was just using it to get attention because of the divorce. He said kids are manipulative and will use any excuse to avoid doing things they don't want to do. My mom was so upset when she told me this that she could barely get the words out. She said she never realized how cruel Marcus could be and that she was starting to understand why his first marriage ended in divorce 5 years ago. That's when she told me something I'd never known. Apparently, Marcus's ex-wife Rachel had tried to talk to my mom during their divorce proceedings. Rachel had wanted to explain her side of the story, but my mom thought it was inappropriate to get involved in their marital problems, so she never listened. After what happened at the wedding, my mom decided to reach out to Rachel. They met for coffee yesterday, and Rachel told my mom things that explained a lot about Marcus's behavior. Rachel said that Marcus had always been critical and controlling, but it got worse after they had kids. Their son Jake, now 8M, had some learning difficulties in kindergarten, and instead of getting him help, Marcus insisted that Jake was just lazy and needed to try harder. When Rachel wanted to have Jake evaluated for learning disabilities, Marcus refused and said she was making excuses for their son's failures. The breaking point came when Jake started having anxiety about school because he was struggling to keep up with his classmates. Marcus told Jake that he was embarrassing the family and that he needed to stop making excuses and work harder. Rachel said Jake started having nightmares and didn't want to go to school. That's when Rachel decided she couldn't stay married to someone who would treat their child that way. She filed for divorce and got full custody of Jake. Marcus barely sees his son now because Rachel doesn't trust him not to damage Jake's self-esteem further. My mom said she felt terrible for not listening to Rachel years ago and for not seeing the signs of how Marcus treated children who needed extra support or patience. After hearing all of this, I called Ariana's speech therapist to tell her what had been happening. The therapist said that what Marcus did at the engagement party was exactly the kind of thing that could cause long-term setbacks for children with speech disorders. She said that public humiliation and pressure to perform often make stuttering worse, not better. She also told me something that made me realize I'd made the right decision about the wedding. She said that children with speech disorders often develop anxiety around family gatherings and public speaking situations when family members don't understand or support them. She said that removing Ariana from situations where she might be criticized or rushed was actually the best thing I could do for her recovery. Ariana still doesn't know about most of what happened at the wedding, but she did ask me yesterday why Uncle Marcus hasn't called or texted like he usually does. I told her that Uncle Marcus and I had a disagreement about something, and she just nodded and went back to playing with her toys. I haven't heard from Marcus since the wedding, which is probably for the best. My mom said he's angry that family members are taking my side and that he feels like everyone is ganging up on him. But from what I can tell, people aren't taking sides because of me, they're making their own judgments based on what they saw and heard at his wedding. I don't regret missing the wedding. After everything I've learned about how Marcus really feels about children who need extra support, I'm glad Ariana and I weren't there to hear his speech. I can't imagine how hurt she would have been if she'd heard her uncle basically call her weak and manipulative. Update 2: things have gotten much worse, and I've learned some information that changes everything I thought I knew about my family situation. First, the good news about Ariana. Her speech therapist says she's made significant progress since we stopped going to family events where Marcus might be present. Ariana has started volunteering to read aloud in class again, and she gave a presentation about her science project last week without any major difficulties. The therapist thinks removing the stress and pressure from family situations has helped her confidence recover. But the situation with Marcus has exploded into something much bigger than I expected. It started 3 weeks ago when I got a call from Rachel, Marcus's ex-wife. She said she needed to talk to me about something important and asked if we could meet in person. I was hesitant because I didn't want to get involved in their divorce drama, but she said it was about Ariana and that I needed to know what she'd discovered. We met at a coffee shop near my house, and Rachel told me something that made my stomach drop. She said that during their custody battle, Marcus's lawyer had tried to use Ariana's stuttering as evidence that I was an unfit parent who was raising damaged children. According to Rachel, Marcus had told his lawyer that Ariana's speech problems were proof that divorce damages children and that he should get full custody of Jake to protect him from ending up like Ariana. Marcus's lawyer had apparently planned to call me as a witness to testify about how the divorce had affected Ariana's development. The strategy fell apart when the judge rejected it as irrelevant to Marcus and Rachel's case, but Rachel said she never forgot how willing Marcus was to use a child's medical condition as a weapon in court. She said it was one of the final things that convinced her that Marcus didn't actually care about children's well-being, he only cared about winning and being right. Rachel apologized for not telling me sooner, but she said she thought Marcus would never be cruel enough to take his feelings out on Ariana directly. When she heard about what happened at the engagement party, she realized she'd been wrong to stay quiet. That conversation led me to call my mom and ask her some direct questions about Marcus that I'd never asked before. I wanted to know if there were other incidents with children in our family that I might have missed or forgotten. My mom was quiet for a long time, then she told me about something that happened when we were teenagers that I'd completely blocked out. When I was 15 and Marcus was 18, our cousin David, who was about 7 at the time, came to stay with us for a week while his parents dealt with a family emergency. David wet the bed a couple of times during his stay, which was normal for a young child in a stressful situation. But instead of being understanding, Marcus made David's life miserable. He called David a baby, made jokes about him in front of other family members, and even threatened to tell David's friends at school about the bedwetting when David went home. My mom said she should have put a stop to it, but she thought Marcus was just being a typical teenage boy who didn't know how to handle the situation. She said David became withdrawn and anxious during that visit, and he never wanted to come stay with us again. I don't remember this happening, which my mom thinks is because I was dealing with my own teenage problems at the time and wasn't paying attention to family dynamics. But she said she's carried guilt about it for years because she could see how much Marcus's behavior hurt David. David is grown now with kids of his own, and he rarely comes to family gatherings. When I asked my mom why, she said she thinks it's because he never forgot how Marcus treated him when he was vulnerable and needed support. This made me start thinking about other family interactions I might have overlooked. I called my cousin Lisa and asked her if she remembered Marcus being mean to younger kids when we were growing up. Lisa said she'd always thought Marcus was kind of a bully to anyone smaller or weaker than him, but she figured he'd grown out of it as an adult. Then Lisa told me something that happened at last year's family Christmas party that I'd somehow missed. Marcus's son Jake had been there with Rachel, and Jake had spilled grape juice on his shirt during dinner. According to Lisa, Marcus got angry and told Jake he was clumsy and embarrassing. Jake started crying, and Rachel immediately took him home. Lisa said she thought it was just a bad moment between a father and son, but now she was starting to see a pattern of Marcus being harsh with children who made mistakes or had problems. The final piece came when I talked to Aunt Joyce again. She told me that after the wedding, she'd spoken to several other family members about Marcus's speech and behavior. Apparently, a lot of people had stories about Marcus being cruel or dismissive to children, but everyone had kept quiet because they thought it was none of their business or they assumed it was just Marcus having bad days. Aunt Joyce said that Tommy had actually told her months ago that he didn't like Uncle Marcus because Marcus made him feel stupid. Tommy said that at family gatherings, Marcus would ask him questions about school or sports, then act impatient when Tommy took time to process an answer. Tommy said Marcus would roll his eyes or make comments about how Tommy needed to pay better attention. I was horrified that I'd missed all of these signs. Looking back, I can see that Ariana always got quiet around Marcus at family events, but I thought she was just being shy. Now I wonder if she was picking up on his impatience with her speech and trying to protect herself by staying silent. Armed with all this information, I decided to have one final conversation with Marcus. I called him last week and told him I wanted to discuss what had happened and try to understand his perspective. The conversation did not go well. Marcus immediately went on the defensive and said that everyone was ganging up on him because they were jealous of his success and his new marriage. He said that he'd always been the responsible one in the family while everyone else made excuses for their problems. When I brought up Ariana's stuttering and how his behavior at the engagement party had hurt her, he said that Ariana's problems were not his responsibility and that I needed to stop trying to make everyone else accommodate her issues. Then he said something that ended our relationship permanently. He told me that Ariana's stuttering was probably just a phase she was going through for attention, and that if I stopped making such a big deal about it, she would probably stop doing it. When I tried to explain that stuttering is a medical condition, not attention-seeking behavior, he cut me off and said that he was tired of everyone in our family making excuses for weakness instead of teaching children to be strong. I hung up on him, and I haven't spoken to him since. My mom called me the next day to tell me that Marcus had called her complaining about our conversation. She said she told Marcus that she was ashamed of how he treated children and that she wouldn't be defending him anymore. Marcus apparently told my mom that if the family was going to choose sides, he didn't need any of us. My mom said he seemed to think that everyone would eventually come around and apologize to him for not supporting him. But that's not what's happening. Instead, more family members are coming forward with their own stories about Marcus's behavior toward children. My dad finally admitted that he'd always known Marcus had a cruel streak but thought Marcus would grow out of it. The sad part is that Sarah, Marcus's new wife, seems to have no idea what kind of person she married. According to my mom, Sarah has been calling family members trying to understand why everyone is suddenly distant from Marcus. My mom said she didn't have the heart to tell Sarah everything, but she suggested that Sarah pay attention to how Marcus treats children and vulnerable people. Ariana asked me last week why we don't see Uncle Marcus anymore. I told her that Uncle Marcus had been unkind to her and to other children in our family, and that we wouldn't be spending time with people who were mean to kids. Ariana just nodded and said she was glad because Uncle Marcus made her nervous. I wish I'd listened to her instincts sooner. Update 3: I need to give everyone a final update because the situation has reached a conclusion, though not the one I expected. Ariana is doing wonderfully. Her speech therapist says her progress has been remarkable since we stopped attending events where Marcus might be present. She's been stutter-free for most conversations for the past month, and when she does have difficult days, she doesn't get as frustrated or embarrassed as she used to. She's back to volunteering for presentations at school and even joined the debate club. The family situation has settled into a new normal, but it's very different from what we had before. Marcus and I have had no contact since our last phone conversation. He blocked me on social media and told my parents that he doesn't consider me part of his family anymore. My mom says he's convinced that I turned everyone against him and that he's the victim in this whole situation. But the bigger development is what happened with Sarah, his wife. About 6 weeks ago, Sarah called me out of the blue. She said she needed to understand what had happened between Marcus and the family because she was seeing behaviors that worried her. Sarah told me that Marcus had started making comments about her younger sister, who has dyslexia. Sarah's sister is in high school and struggles with reading, but she's getting good support and doing well in school overall. According to Sarah, Marcus had started making comments about how Sarah's parents were enabling her sister's learning problems and how the sister just needed to try harder. Sarah said that when she tried to explain dyslexia to Marcus, he dismissed it as an excuse and said that kids today are too coddled. She said it reminded her of things family members had hinted about his treatment of children, so she decided to reach out to me directly. I told Sarah everything that had happened with Ariana, and I connected her with Rachel so she could hear about Marcus's treatment of his own son. I also gave her the contact information for other family members who had witnessed Marcus's behavior toward children. After talking to several people, Sarah started paying closer attention to Marcus's attitudes and comments. She told me that she began to see a pattern of him being dismissive and cruel toward anyone he perceived as weak or vulnerable. The breaking point came when Sarah's nephew, who is autistic, came to visit them for a weekend. Sarah said Marcus was impatient and critical with the boy, making comments about his behavior and suggesting that his parents weren't disciplining him properly. When the nephew had a meltdown in a restaurant, Marcus got angry and said loud enough for other people to hear that the child was spoiled and needed better parents. Sarah was humiliated and realized that this was who Marcus really was when no one was watching or holding him accountable. She filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. Sarah called to tell me about the divorce and to apologize for not believing the family's concerns about Marcus sooner. She said she'd been so focused on the romantic side of their relationship that she hadn't paid attention to how Marcus treated people who couldn't benefit him or who needed patience and understanding. My mom told me that Marcus is furious about the divorce and is blaming our family for poisoning Sarah against him. He apparently thinks that we conspired to break up his marriage because we were jealous of his happiness. But Sarah told me that her decision had nothing to do with our family's influence. She said that once she started paying attention to Marcus's behavior and attitudes, she couldn't ignore what she was seeing. She said she realized that if they had children together, Marcus would treat them the same way he'd treated Ariana, Jake, Tommy, and other kids in our family. The divorce is proceeding quickly because they don't have children together and kept their finances mostly separate. Sarah said Marcus is not handling it well and has been sending her angry messages blaming everyone but himself for the marriage falling apart. Marcus has also cut contact with most of our extended family. Several relatives have told me that when they've tried to reach out to him, he responds with angry messages about how everyone has betrayed him and chosen sides against him. My dad tried to have a conversation with Marcus last month to see if they could repair their relationship. According to my dad, Marcus spent the entire conversation complaining about how unfairly he'd been treated and how no one appreciated everything he'd done for the family over the years. When my dad tried to suggest that Marcus consider apologizing to Ariana and other children he'd hurt, Marcus said he had nothing to apologize for and that everyone else needed to apologize to him. My dad came away from that conversation convinced that Marcus genuinely believes he's done nothing wrong and that everyone else is the problem. Rachel told me that Marcus has also stopped seeing his son Jake regularly. She said that Jake asked if he had to keep visiting his dad, and when Rachel asked why, Jake said that his dad always made him feel bad about himself. Rachel has decided not to force the visits anymore, and Marcus hasn't fought her on it. The saddest part of all of this is that Marcus seems to have no understanding of how his own actions led to these consequences. My mom says he's told people that his family abandoned him during his divorce and that he's better off without relatives who don't support him. But from my perspective, Marcus abandoned his family the moment he chose to be cruel to children who needed kindness and understanding. He chose his own ego and need to be right over the well-being of vulnerable people in his life. Ariana doesn't ask about Uncle Marcus anymore. She's focused on school, her friends, and her hobbies. She started taking drama classes last month and loves performing in front of people. Her confidence has grown tremendously since we stopped exposing her to Marcus's criticism and impatience. I don't regret any of the decisions I made. Missing his wedding was the right choice. Cutting contact was the right choice. Protecting Ariana from someone who saw her medical condition as a character flaw was absolutely the right choice. Some people might think it's sad that a family has been broken apart over a speech disorder and an engagement party incident. But this was never really about stuttering or one bad evening. This was about whether children in our family would be safe from someone who thought vulnerability was weakness and that cruelty was an acceptable way to motivate people. Ariana is thriving, our family is more peaceful without Marcus's negativity, and the children in our extended family no longer have to worry about being criticized or shamed for things they can't control. Sometimes protecting the people you love means accepting that some relationships can't be salvaged. Marcus made his choices, and now he's living with the consequences. I'm at peace with mine. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I exposed my wife's affair with her ex at our wedding reception after my sister showed me their messages and photos but then found out my mill was behind everything. I, 32M, just blew up my entire wedding and possibly ruined my now ex-wife's reputation, but I need to know if I went too far. I'm using a throwaway account because this situation has blown up in our social circle and some friends know my main Reddit. For context, I met Chelsea, 29F, 4 years ago at a friend's barbecue. I remember thinking how beautiful she was, but also noticing how sad she seemed. She had just ended a 6-year relationship with her college sweetheart Nick, 31M, 3 months before. According to her, they broke up because he wasn't ready for marriage and she was. She told me they started dating in freshman year of college, moved in together after graduation, and she expected a proposal that never came. After 6 years together, she gave him an ultimatum and he chose to end things instead. I thought she was incredibly brave for knowing what she wanted and not settling. We started talking that evening and really hit it off. She was funny, smart, and seemed very honest about her past. I appreciated that she was upfront about Nick from the beginning. She told me they ended things amicably and remained distant friends since they share the same friend group. I was fine with this since I'm not the jealous type and I've stayed friends with some of my exes too. Things moved pretty quickly between us. Within 6 months we were practically living together, and after a year we made it official. My family loved her, especially my sister Naomi, 35F. They became incredibly close, like actual sisters. Naomi was going through a rough divorce when I met Chelsea, and Chelsea really helped her through it. The only tension came from Chelsea's mom Linda, 56F, who never fully accepted me from day one. Linda would always make these subtle digs about how Nick was such a nice boy, how he came from such a good family, how she wished things had worked out differently. She'd show me old photos of Chelsea and Nick together, telling stories about their relationship, almost like she was trying to make me feel like an outsider. I ignored it because Chelsea always defended me and said her mom would come around eventually. Last year, I decided to propose. I planned this elaborate proposal with help from Naomi, Chelsea's favorite restaurant, her favorite music, rose petals, the whole thing. She said yes immediately and seemed genuinely happy. We set the date for June 2024 and started planning. Chelsea threw herself into wedding preparations, spending hours with Linda choosing flowers, tasting cakes, picking venues. Everything seemed perfect. The wedding was set for last Saturday. We had 200 guests coming, including people flying in from Europe and Asia. The venue was this beautiful historic mansion with amazing gardens. Chelsea had been stressing about every detail being perfect. The night before, I was having drinks with my groomsmen at our hotel. It was around 10 p.m. when I got a text from Naomi asking to meet urgently. She seemed really upset, so I stepped out. What she told me completely destroyed my world. Apparently Chelsea had been secretly meeting up with Nick for the past year, all through our engagement. Naomi had proof, hundreds of messages, photos, hotel receipts. She found out because she saw them together at a cafe last week, looking very intimate. When Naomi confronted Chelsea about it, Chelsea broke down and confessed everything. The truth was that Chelsea and Nick never really ended things. When he wasn't ready for marriage, they agreed to go on break so she could date other people and he could figure out what he wanted. But they kept seeing each other regularly. Even after she met me, they continued their relationship. Chelsea told Naomi she truly loved me but couldn't let go of Nick either. She saw me as the stable, reliable choice for marriage and a family, but Nick was her soulmate. Naomi showed me recent messages between them where Chelsea was planning their future meetups after the wedding. She told Nick she'd always love him more than me, but needed to marry me for practical reasons. There were intimate photos of them together from just 2 weeks ago at some hotel. They had been meeting at least twice a month throughout our entire relationship. I spent the whole night feeling sick and trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to just call off the wedding immediately, but the logistics seemed impossible. Most guests had already arrived, including elderly relatives who had traveled from overseas. Chelsea's family had spent a fortune on everything. The venue and vendors required full payment anyway. But how could I go through with marrying someone who had been lying to me for our entire relationship? By morning, I made my decision. I would go through with the ceremony but expose everything at the reception. Maybe it was cruel, but I felt she deserved public consequences for public deception. She had been lying not just to me but to all our friends and family who were celebrating our love. Chelsea looked stunning walking down the aisle. She showed no sign that anything was wrong, smiling and crying what I assumed were fake tears. We exchanged vows and rings. I felt sick saying I do but managed to get through it. Then came the reception. I had asked the venue's AV guy to be ready with a screen and projector for my speech. When it was time for the groom's toast, I got up and started normally, thanking everyone for coming. Then I nodded to the AV guy and the messages and photos started playing on the big screen. I announced to everyone that the wedding was off since the bride had been cheating with her ex the entire time. The room erupted in absolute chaos. Chelsea ran out crying. Linda started screaming that I was a monster for humiliating her daughter. Nick was actually there as a guest, the audacity, and tried to punch me but my brother intercepted him. Some guests were crying, others were yelling, many just sat in shocked silence. Chelsea's family is saying I'm cruel and evil for embarrassing her publicly instead of handling it privately. Even some of my own family members think I went too far with the public reveal, saying that while Chelsea was wrong to cheat, my revenge was excessive. But Naomi fully supports me, though she says I could have just called off the wedding quietly. I don't regret exposing the truth. Chelsea and Nick's betrayal involved and affected everyone present. But part of me wonders if I took it too far. So AITA for choosing to reveal everything at the reception instead of canceling earlier? Update 1: The aftermath of the wedding day has been absolute chaos. I needed some time to process everything before posting this update, and honestly, things have only gotten more complicated. For the first few days after the wedding, Chelsea kept calling and texting constantly. I'm talking 50+ calls a day and hundreds of messages. She would switch between begging for forgiveness and accusing me of ruining her life. I blocked her number, so she started emailing from new accounts. When that didn't work, she began showing up at my workplace and apartment building. She would wait in the lobby for hours, crying and causing scenes until security had to remove her. Her messages were all over the place. Sometimes she'd say she made the biggest mistake of her life and would do anything to fix it. Other times she'd blame me for not understanding that she could love two people at once. She even tried to convince me that her relationship with Nick was purely physical and didn't mean anything compared to what we had. As if that made it better. But yesterday, Naomi came to me with more revelations that made everything so much worse. She'd been doing some digging since the wedding, talking to family friends and piecing things together. Turns out Linda, Chelsea's mom, wasn't just aware of the affair, she actively encouraged and facilitated it the entire time. Remember all those mother-daughter shopping trips and spa days when Chelsea was supposedly spending quality time with Linda? They were covers for her meetups with Nick. Linda would even let them use her vacation house in the mountains for their romantic getaways. All those weekends when I thought Chelsea was helping her mom renovate the place, she was actually there with Nick. The worst part is Linda's reason for doing this. Apparently, she never got over her own college boyfriend, James, who happens to be Nick's dad. They dated for 3 years in college and she was convinced he was her soulmate. But James wasn't ready to settle down right after graduation. Linda's parents pressured her to marry Chelsea's dad instead because he had a stable job and came from a good family. Linda has been living vicariously through Chelsea and Nick's relationship this whole time. She saw their situation as a chance to rewrite her own story. She kept pushing Chelsea to keep seeing Nick even after getting engaged to me because she regretted not doing the same thing with James years ago. In her twisted mind, she was protecting her daughter from making the same mistake she did, choosing the safe, stable option over true love. When Naomi told me this, I was so angry I drove straight to Linda's house to confront her. Instead of denying anything, she actually defended herself. She said she was being a good mother by helping Chelsea follow her heart. Then she had the audacity to tell me I should be grateful that Chelsea was willing to marry me at all when her heart belonged to Nick. She said someday I'd understand that you can't fight destiny and true love. This made me start digging deeper into the whole situation. I hired a private investigator who discovered something I never expected. Linda and James have also been meeting secretly over the years, using Chelsea and Nick's relationship as cover. When Chelsea and Nick would meet at the vacation house, sometimes Linda and James would be there too. They've been having an emotional affair for decades while their spouses knew nothing. Chelsea's dad has no idea about any of this. He's always been kind to me and recently reached out to apologize for the wedding disaster. I'm torn about whether to tell him that his wife has been betraying him for years. He doesn't deserve this, but finding out might destroy him. Meanwhile, it turns out Nick was engaged to someone else this entire time. Rachel, 28F, found out everything when videos from the wedding reception started circulating in our social circles. She reached out to thank me for exposing the truth. Apparently Nick had been gaslighting her whenever she suspected something was wrong with him and Chelsea's friendship. But Nick isn't taking any responsibility. Instead, he's trying to paint me as the villain. He's telling mutual friends that I'm mentally unstable and made everything up because I was jealous of his history with Chelsea. Some people actually believe him, saying the proof I showed at the wedding must have been manipulated. 3 days ago, Linda called Naomi claiming Chelsea had attempted suicide and was in the hospital. When Naomi went to check, she discovered it was an exaggeration. Chelsea had taken some sleeping pills but called Linda immediately after. Doctors confirmed it wasn't a serious attempt. Now Linda is spreading rumors that I drove Chelsea to attempt suicide with my cruel public humiliation. The whole situation is taking a toll on everyone. The venue and vendors are threatening to sue over the cancelled reception since we signed contracts. They say the way the wedding ended doesn't void our payment obligations. Linda offered to handle all the costs if I sign an NDA about the whole situation, especially the parts about her and James. I refused because I'm done helping them hide their lies. Chelsea is now staying with her parents and Linda is running a smear campaign against me in their social circle. She's telling everyone I emotionally abused Chelsea throughout our relationship and the cheating story was just my excuse to humiliate her. Some of their family friends have been harassing my parents, saying they raised a monster. I'm documenting everything in case they try to escalate things further. My lawyer advised me to file for a restraining order against Chelsea since she won't stop showing up at my place. I never expected wedding planning to end with legal proceedings, but here we are. Update 2: I wasn't planning to post another update, but the situation has exploded in ways I never imagined. Everything came to a head last week when James, Nick's dad, died suddenly of a heart attack. He was only 58, and apparently the stress of everything coming out contributed to his condition. I didn't plan to attend the funeral, but Chelsea's dad called and asked me to come with him. He said he had suspicions about Linda and James for years but never had proof. He wanted moral support while confronting Linda, and I agreed because he's been one of the few decent people in this mess. At the funeral, James's wife Martha was accepting condolences when someone handed her a box they found while cleaning James's office. It contained hundreds of letters between him and Linda spanning over 30 years. Their emotional affair never stopped after college, they just got better at hiding it. The letters revealed everything. They had been meeting secretly throughout their marriages, even before Chelsea and Nick were born. They used their kids' relationship as cover for their own affair in recent years. There were detailed accounts of their meetups at the vacation house, plans for a future together once their kids were grown, and discussions about how perfect it was that Chelsea and Nick found each other too. Martha started reading the letters right there at the funeral home. Linda tried to stop her, but it was too late. Chelsea's dad also heard everything. He had been standing nearby when Martha started reading them out loud. The scene that followed was awful. Linda couldn't keep it together and broke down completely. She confessed everything, not just about helping Chelsea and Nick, but about her own decades-long relationship with James. Chelsea's dad walked out of the funeral without saying a word. Linda ran after him, but he drove away. He came to my apartment later that night and broke down. He apologized for not seeing what was happening right in front of him for years. Apparently, there were signs: Linda's sudden interest in renovating the vacation house, her constant defense of Nick, her obsession with Chelsea marrying him instead of me. He just never wanted to believe his wife could do this. The truth about Chelsea's suicide attempt also came out during all this. Martha revealed that James had called her that night, worried because Linda was planning to stage a suicide attempt to get sympathy for Chelsea. They figured if people thought Chelsea was suicidal because of me, it would take attention away from the cheating. The whole thing was orchestrated. Chelsea took a few sleeping pills knowing Linda would find her quickly. Chelsea is living with Nick now, but things aren't going well. After James's death, Nick started drinking heavily and Chelsea caught him with multiple women. When she confronted him, he said he never promised her exclusivity. Apparently, he had other women throughout their affair too, she just chose not to see it. Several mutual friends who initially sided with them have reached out to apologize to me. They said Chelsea's been calling them crying about Nick's behavior, finally admitting that she ruined a good marriage for a fantasy. The most unexpected development is that I've started seeing Rachel, Nick's ex-fiancée. We met for coffee to discuss everything and really connected over our shared experience. She understood exactly what I was going through because Nick had gaslighted her the same way Chelsea manipulated me. We started hanging out regularly and things progressed naturally. Chelsea found out about Rachel and me through social media. She showed up at my office having a complete meltdown, screaming that I was only dating Rachel for revenge. Security had to escort her out. She's been telling anyone who'll listen that Rachel and I plotted this together to hurt her and Nick. Maybe she's right about the revenge part. I can't deny that it feels good knowing how much this bothers her. But my feelings for Rachel are genuine. We make each other happy and understand each other in a way no one else can. Linda tried to contact me through my lawyer, offering to pay all the wedding expenses and additional compensation if I agree not to expose her affair with James publicly. Martha is threatening to name Linda in James's obituary as the woman who destroyed their marriage. The whole situation is still messy, but at least the truth is finally out. Update 3: This will be my final update because this chapter of my life is finally closing, though not without one last round of drama. A lot has happened in the past few months, and I think everyone needs to know how this story ends. Chelsea and Nick got married last month in a rushed ceremony in Vegas. No family was invited, not even Linda. They posted about it on social media, calling it a triumph of true love over adversity and how they were always meant to be together. Chelsea even tagged me in the posts, probably trying to show me how happy she was without me. Well, karma had other plans. A week after their wedding, Chelsea caught Nick in their bed with one of her bridesmaids from our wedding, Emma. Turns out Nick and Emma had been hooking up since our wedding day. They got together at the hotel bar after my reception revelations, and never stopped seeing each other. The irony of Chelsea being cheated on by her affair partner was too much even for me. Chelsea had a complete breakdown. She drove to my apartment at 3 a.m., drunk and crying about how she made the biggest mistake of her life. She kept saying she threw away a good man for someone who never really loved her. Rachel was staying over that night, and seeing her there sent Chelsea into a rage. She tried to force her way into my apartment, screaming that Rachel stole her life. We had to call the police to remove her. Linda and Chelsea's dad's divorce has been brutal. She tried to claim half of his business in the settlement, even though it was his before their marriage. When that failed, she started telling people he had been abusive throughout their marriage. Nobody believed her since she'd spent the last 30 years bragging about their perfect marriage. He's been staying with me occasionally when things get too intense with the divorce proceedings. Surprisingly, Chelsea's dad and I have developed a really good relationship through all this. He's become like a father figure to me, even encouraging me to propose to Rachel. He even helped me plan the proposal, a quiet dinner at home with just our closest friends. No grand gestures or public displays this time. Rachel said yes immediately. Chelsea somehow found out about the proposal dinner and tried to crash it. She showed up in her wedding dress from her Vegas wedding, drunk again, saying she left Nick and wanted to try again with me. Security had to escort her out while she screamed about how Rachel and I planned this whole thing to hurt her. Nick has apparently moved in with Emma now. He tried to contact Rachel to warn her about me, saying I was unstable and would do to her what I did to Chelsea. Rachel responded by sending him the screenshots of all his messages to her during his affair with Chelsea. He's stopped bothering us since then. Linda is still defending Chelsea and Nick's actions. She's been telling everyone that Rachel is a homewrecker who broke up Chelsea's marriage to Nick. The fact that Chelsea was having an affair with Nick throughout my relationship with her somehow doesn't count as homewrecking in Linda's mind. She's also still blaming me for overreacting at the wedding and starting this whole mess. Rachel and I are planning a small destination wedding in Bali with just 20 close friends and family. Chelsea's dad will be attending. He's actually walking Rachel down the aisle since her own father passed away years ago. It feels right, given how supportive he's been. Sometimes I think about how differently things could have turned out if I hadn't exposed everything at the wedding. But seeing Chelsea's marriage to Nick implode so spectacularly confirmed that I did the right thing. Rachel and I are happy, building our life together without secrets or lies. Sometimes the worst betrayals really do lead to better things. This whole experience taught me that karma is real, and the truth always comes out eventually. Thanks for following this crazy journey. Time to close this chapter and focus on my future with Rachel.